Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Alan Course. Today we're going to be talking about the period of accelerating and global change and realignments, specifically from the 1900s up to today. Today we're going to be going over technological advances, both world wars, the Nazis, peaceful protests, and on top of this lesson, my favorite, Jackie Robinson. In the early 1900s, there were insane amounts of inventions. Like they were coming out with inventions every year with new, cool, and helpful gadgets. Some examples were that new technologies greatly helped researchers invent new machines to help save lives, like the cardiogram. There was new types of transportations and communication that helped everyone make their lives easier. There were new medicines like antibiotics and vaccines for you when you have a nasty infection or to fight off diseases. All of these technological innovations were necessary to make these changes in the world. Now, let's talk about World War I. Wars were very common in this time period because everyone wanted power, money, and they just wanted it all. World War I began in 1914 with the assassination of Austrian, I'm just going to say Franz Ferdinand. Then it all went crazy. After the assassination, Austria declared war on Serbia. Then Russia wanted to defend its ally Serbia. Then Germany declared war on Russia to protect Austria. This caused France to declare war on Germany to protect its ally Russia. Germany invaded Belgium, which caused Britain to declare war on Germany. Whoa. Keep this in mind, this all happened in just a few days. After all of their warring and countless battles, the war officially ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in 1920. Now to just over a dozen years later to one of the most horrific events in human history, the Holocaust. The Nazis were formed in 1933 with Adolf Hitler in charge. Hitler was crazy in the head, and he hated Jewish, gays, and people with disabilities. He blamed the Jewish for Germany losing the war and considered them to be less than a person. Hitler and Nazi Germany killed 6 million Jews, and it is thought that the Nazis murdered over 17 million innocent people. A few years later, World War II started, in 1937 when Germany invaded Poland. The Great Britain and France responded by declaring war on Germany. Then the United States and Japan got involved. The war in Europe then ended with Germany's surrender on May 7th in 1945, and the war in the Pacific ended when Japan surrendered on September 2nd of 1945. Alright, let's go to the 1960s. So the world needed innovation with all of the growing population happening. So of course, there was a solution, the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution saw introduction of the chemicals and pesticides to help produce more crops. Farmers were now able to produce far more food and help feed the growing world. Petroleum use began to increase because of the need of transportation, so now cars, planes, and boats ran on gasoline. All of this sounds like good news, but it didn't make the earth feel so good. Deforestation and desertification started to become an issue, and the world's supply of fresh water and clean air began to decrease. Greenhouse gases were released into the atmosphere, which led to climate change and the beginning of global warming, which is still one of the world's biggest problems today. Okay, now for important protests. In the late 1900s, movements for equality between gender, race, and religion started to begin. In the 1960s, the global feminist movement became very popular. Women fought for voting rights, the right to start a divorce, the right to decide on an abortion, the right to own property in many countries, and they also focused on dismantling the workplace inequality. These are all things that women greatly strived for. They needed this. Another example is the American Civil Rights Movement. led by Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. used peaceful protests and boycotts to gain the rights for African Americans and people in the U.S. He started this movement to gain equality for African American people. He believed that the discrimination and segregation in the southern United States were unacceptable. So he and his fellow African Americans fought peacefully and eventually ended up receiving their rights. One more example was when Mahatma Gandhi used peaceful protests in India to help India gain its independence from Britain. Gandhi organized several non-violent civil disobedience campaigns throughout his life, but his most successful was the Salt March. On March 12th of 1930, Gandhi decided to walk 241 miles to the sea in Dandi to make his own salt, because Britain had just put tax on salt. Thousands of Indians joined him on this march. Now for my favorite story in this entire time period, the story of Jackie Robinson. Jack Roosevelt Robinson was born on January 31st, 1919 in Cairo, Georgia. Jackie was a natural athlete all through his life, but also had to deal with racism. In 1946, Jackie began to play professional ball for the Kansas City Monarchs in the Negro League. While he excelled in this league, batting .387, which is insane. Jose Altuve batted .346 and won MVP last year. Go Astros! Anyway, Rich Branke, the general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, wanted to sign him to play with the white men. So, Jackie signed with them and was sent to the minor leagues, where he dealt with constant racism. Some games, the other team would not even show up, just because Jackie was on the team. Jackie was called up to the Dodgers at the start of 1947 baseball season. That year, the Dodgers won the pennant and Jackie was named Rookie of the Year. Over the next 10 years, Jackie Robinson was named an All-Star 6 times and the National League MVP in 1949. All throughout his career, he faced racism, but he promised his coach to put his anger into baseball and not the haters and not those people criticizing him. Jackie Robinson's breaking of the color barrier in baseball paved the way for other African American players to join the major leagues. He also led the way for racial integration into other areas of American life. In 1962, he was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Wow, that's such a beautiful story. Now let's talk about continuity. A great example of this is protests. Back then, they had peaceful protests for equality, gender, and ethnicity. That has not changed. Recently, we had a guns violence protest that moved the world and opened many people's eyes to armed weapons. Okay, now for change. An example of change is slaves. This is a great example because now in America it is illegal to own slaves since 1965. Well, I hope y'all learned something, and thanks again for watching. I'll see y'all next time on Allen Course.